All right, welcome everyone to this Masterclass Explainer. Today we are opening up what I like to call the ultimate survival guide to IT project management. Whether you're gearing up to lead your very first software rollout, or you're a seasoned tech pro trying to figure out why your last deployment, well, kind of went sideways, you are in the exact right place. In this tutorial, we're going to break down the really complex mechanics of project management into clear, actionable, and visual steps.
But before we even get into the how, we have to ask a seriously critical question. Why do so many IT projects fail? I mean, we've all seen it happen, right? Budgets just balloon out of control, deadlines completely vanish, and the final product, it barely resembles what was originally promised. Well, throughout this tutorial, you're going to discover a rather surprising truth. Fixing this almost always requires us to look far beyond just the technology itself.
Okay, let's dive right into our 6 steps for this tutorial. We'll start with the systems approach, followed by navigating structures and managing stakeholders. Then we get into execution with the project lifecycle, global IT trends, and finally, going agile with Scrum. Let's kick things off with step 1, the systems approach, seeing the big picture. So, adopting a systems philosophy basically means stepping back and taking a truly holistic view. A project absolutely cannot operate in some isolated IT bubble. The model we're looking at brilliantly illustrates this with 3 overlapping spheres: business, organization, and technology. As a project manager, you have to address all 3. Let me give you a really great cautionary tale from our sources, the College Tablet Project. The IT department tried to roll out tablets to everyone on campus, but they exclusively focused on the technology sphere, hardware specs, network bandwidth, that sort of thing. They totally ignored the business sphere, like how it might impact enrollments, and the organizational sphere, like who was actually going to train the staff. Because they worked in total isolation and just sent out a mass email instead of really communicating, the project faced massive, massive backlash. Moving right along to step 2, navigating organizational structures, finding your place. Here's the deal. You literally cannot manage a project if you don't know how authority actually flows within a company. What we've laid out here are the 3 main types of organizational structures you're going to encounter. First up is the functional structure. Think of your traditional university departments like HR, IT, or engineering. In this setup, the project manager actually has the least amount of authority. Then you have a project structure, where the company is organized entirely around projects, like maybe a defense contractor or an architecture firm. Here, you, the PM, have the absolute most authority. And finally, we have the matrix structure, which is basically a hybrid of the 2, where staff report to both a functional manager and a project manager. Now, if you do find yourself in a matrix organization, you really need to know what kind it is. In a weak matrix, the functional manager still holds the reins, and your control is pretty limited. But in a strong matrix, the project manager has the upper hand, giving you way more control over both the resources and the schedule. Knowing which one you're operating in completely dictates how you lead. But hey, beyond just reading the org chart, you need to learn how to truly read an organization as a whole. You can do this by looking through these 4 frames. The structural frame is all about those charts and official roles we just talked about. The human resources frame is about aligning the demands of the work with actual people's needs and resolving any skill shortages. The political frame? Absolutely vital. It's how you navigate power, conflict, and the inevitable competition for limited resources. And finally, the symbolic frame, which represents the shared values and the actual living culture of the organization. Understanding all 4 is basically your secret decoder ring for workplace dynamics. Okay, step 3, managing project stakeholders, identifying the players. You can have the best, most cutting-edge technology in the world, but at the end of the day, projects are driven by people. Let's be very precise here. A project stakeholder is anyone involved in or affected by a project. It is so crucial to realize that a stakeholder isn't just a sponsor who's signing the checks. If someone's daily workflow is going to change even a little bit because of your new software, they are a stakeholder, and you absolutely need to manage their expectations. So, stakeholders generally fall into 2 broad categories: internal and external. Think back to our college tablet project case study for a second. The project manager, Tom, well, he failed spectacularly because his stakeholder view was just way too narrow. He focused on a handful of internal IT folks, but completely ignored other massive internal stakeholders, like the faculty members who actually had to teach with the new tablets, and the senior administrators. Now, of all your internal stakeholders, top management is without a doubt the most vital. Getting their commitment is an absolute non-negotiable step for any PM. Why? Just look at that first point, ensuring adequate resources. Withholding resources, whether that means slashing the budget or pulling your most skilled personnel, is literally the fastest way to kill a project. Top management also speeds up unexpected approvals, and crucially, they have the actual authority to force cooperation between feuding departments across the whole organization.
Moving into execution mode with Step 4, the project lifecycle from concept to closeout. Think of a project lifecycle as the overarching framework that dictates exactly what work is done and when it happens. Let's walk through how this builds across the 4 traditional phases. First is the concept phase, where you figure out, hey, is this project even feasible? Second is development, where all your detailed planning happens. Third is implementation, which is where the actual project work is executed. And take note here, this implementation phase, it consumes the absolute majority of your time and your budget. Finally, you have the closeout phase, where the work is formally completed and handed over.
Let's make this a bit more concrete by looking at the practical documentation. Notice how the specific deliverables are directly tied to each phase. In the concept phase, you're producing high-level stuff like a business case and maybe a rough 2-level work breakdown structure. But jump over to implementation, and you are deep in the weeds, generating definitive cost estimates and performance reports. And at the very end, in closeout, you need to deliver the formal customer acceptance and a lessons learned document so you don't repeat your mistakes next time.
All right, Step 5, global IT project trends, the modern landscape.
Traditional frameworks are great. We need them. But the modern landscape is shifting rapidly. One of the biggest realities you absolutely must navigate today is the rise of virtual teams. On the one hand, they're amazing. They offer lower costs, access to a 24/7 global pool of expertise, and a much better work-life balance for the team. But look at the flip side. You're suddenly dealing with potential team isolation, massive communication challenges across different time zones and cultures, and 100% dependence on technology to get anything done. If you're managing a virtual team, building trust early on and having a rock-solid communication plan aren't just nice-to-haves, they're your essential survival skills. And finally, we've arrived at Step 6, going agile with Scrum, flexibility in action. So, agile methodology was actually developed as a direct response to the limitations of those rigid waterfall life cycles we looked at earlier. The difference is completely foundational. In traditional project management, unknown requirements are viewed as a massive risk, something that must be planned away at all costs. But in Agile, changing requirements aren't just expected, they're actively embraced. This makes Agile the dramatically superior choice for software development, or honestly, any highly dynamic environment, because it allows your teams to develop incrementally and pivot the second it's necessary. This crucial point is captured beautifully in this insight from industry expert J. Leroy Ward. He states that embracing Agile yields significant rewards, but, and this is a big but, only if done right. Agile isn't just some magic wand you wave over a messy, failing project to fix it. It requires highly disciplined implementation, carefully selecting the right projects for the framework, and keeping your stakeholders' expectations completely aligned the whole way through. To actually operationalize Agile, many teams use a framework called Scrum. Now, Scrum is highly structured, and it starts with 3 very specific roles. You've got the product owner, who creates and prioritizes the wish list of features, what we call the product backlog. Then you have the Scrum Master, who acts as the ultimate facilitator. Their entire job is to keep the team focused on their goals and relentlessly remove any obstacles in their way. And finally, the team members, who are completely empowered to self-organize and execute the tasks on their own. And here's how that modern Scrum workflow actually operates in practice. First up is sprint planning, where the team selects work from the backlog. Then begins the sprint itself. This is a fixed period, usually about 2 to 4 weeks, to just get that work done. Every single day, they hold a short, focused daily scrum to check in on progress. And finally, they wrap up with a sprint review and retrospective to evaluate the completed work and figure out how to improve their own processes. This cycle repeats continuously, allowing modern IT teams to deliver potentially shippable products on a really regular basis. Wow, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground in this tutorial today, from systems theory all the way down to the daily scrum. But I want to leave you with a provocative thought that kind of ties this whole explainer together. There's a famous saying in business that culture eats structure for breakfast. You can implement the absolute best agile structures and scrum workflows in the world, but if your underlying organizational culture doesn't support flexibility, trust, and open communication, the whole thing will fail. So I challenge you to look closely at your own workplace, your own stakeholders, and your own structures. Is your organization truly ready for agile? Thank you so much for joining this masterclass explainer. Keep learning, keep adapting, and we'll see you next time.